Max Vobiscum. I am taking a break from doing yard work. Y'all, I am filthy. But I was just sitting there thinking about my trip, and I wanted to talk about the first day. So as my break from doing yard work, I'm about to mow my lawn because my grass is so overgrown. But I was having a fortune cookie and a water, and my fortune says, share your fortune with others. It will bring you good luck. So I was like, huh, this is a perfect interlude from doing yard work and slaving away to tell the first day of my Missouri trip, where I visited Adam-ondi-Ahman. Huh, I think a bird just tried to attack a lizard. And I probably pronounced that wrong, so I apologize. Adam-ondi-Ahman. I went there. I'm just going to say Adam for short. So that was the majority of my first day. I did some other things going on, but I wanted to focus on that part of the journey because that was one of the reasons I wanted to go out there. Because there was another female, I actually think she's based out of Texas somewhere, northern Texas. But she had posted a video like kind of making fun of the Garden of Eden concept being in Missouri. And I obviously, that inspired me being like, well, I want to go see it. So I went out there, and also I wanted to go look at the place as well, the town, Independence, Liberty, and the outskirts there of St. Louis or Kansas City, because of that being proclaimed as Zion. And I'm going through the DNC series, and I wanted to visit the place, obviously, that is mentioned there. Oh, Yeti just ate. We might as well eat it, Yeti. Oh, we're watching a murder. It's a cicada. Yeti, if you're not going to eat it, then leave him alone. What are you doing? Oh. Cooties, I don't even like these. Oh, he flipped over on his own. Ah! Okay. Yeti, leave him alone. Anyways, cicada interlude. He'll get back to it. Oh, that reminds me of Hillary's daughter Violet, because she collects cicadas. And I actually found her a shell of one that I'm going to send back. That was a surprise. Yeti, leave it alone. Anyways, getting back to visiting Adam. So it was about like a 90-minute drive from Kansas City. So once I got my rental car, I was just on my way going out there. And it was rainy, overcast, because this was actually coincidentally on Pioneer Day. And I had no idea that it was Pioneer Day until I saw it somewhere on Threads, and also Hillary had mentioned that their ward was celebrating Pioneer Day on Saturday. And I was staying with Hillary, and so that was coordinated, but I'm going to talk about that part later in the trip. So I coincidentally land there. It's Pioneer Day. It's overcast. It's the rain and showers are kind of going on and off. The humidity's relatively low compared to how it was for the rest of the weekend, and also like just seasonally average wise. It was a beautiful, almost like luminous, like state of existence when you go into that, like with the fog a little bit and the overcastness, and people aren't really out driving. And I was going out into the country even more, heading out to Adam. And so I finally get there, and I obviously had to go to the bathroom. And so I pull into the bathroom there, or I stop at the entrance, because when you first are pulling up, you're going through a lot of rural roads. It's not like something on a high where it's a very bustling area. You're driving out into these like one-lane roads that are surrounded by cornfields, by soybeans, by like ponds on people's property. It's just beautiful. It reminds me of just driving out to my dad's place. And so get there, there was no one there. I thought maybe like missionaries would be stationed there, which I learned later when I saw the houses on the property, that those are missionary couples that are stationed there to help keep up the maintenance and groundskeeping and whatnot. And I low-key almost stopped at one because I thought I saw someone unloading groceries, and I wanted to go talk to them, but I didn't. Because it was like a private residence. I didn't want to like be a stranger walking up to them. Anyways, So I go in and I see one car parked there right by the bathroom, and I was like, I have to go to the bathroom, so I'm gonna go too. And so I realized it was open because I didn't see anyone around, so I assumed someone was using the bathroom, meaning it was open. So I parked too. And I don't know who it was. It was like this lone female by herself, and she was like singing in the bathroom when I walked in, and she like I scared her, so she like stopped singing. So I was like, I feel sorry for whoever that was. But after I used the bathroom, I think she drove off, and then I was just kind of started exploring the space. I finally, right, my bladder's emptied. I can enjoy where I'm at. And so the mist was just settling down, like slowly drizzling. There was a little bit of like a fog over the fields there, if you look at the overlook area, but it was so still. Like when the air is dense and it feels hollowed, that's what it was like there. And it was almost as if you could hear the raindrops falling onto the grass or falling onto the water where the pond was. It was just that still out there. I went over, oh, yeah, you scared me. I thought you were the cicada. I don't like bugs. Especially don't like snakes, even though snakes, there's nothing wrong with snakes. I inherited that fear from my father. It was not something that I developed on my own, and I realized that in hindsight because I'm not afraid of spiders at all, neither is he. Anyways, sorry, the reason I bring that up is because one of the funniest things, I was giggling because at Adam, there was literally signs next to the paths being like, beware of snakes. And I was like, how fitting. Even after centuries, Adam still, wants to make sure everyone's warned about snakes. But seriously, there's some poisonous snakes in that region, so I understand why those signs are there. But I laugh because it's just so fitting with the story, the environment, the everything behind it. So I got a good kick out of that. Don't beware of any other animals, just the snakes. Anyways, I walked around, and one of the things I love about these places is the sacredness deepens when you recognize the effort that goes behind maintaining them. And so that's one of the reasons I'm maintaining my yard, is because I was inspired by what I perceived when I went to the temple grounds. Because I recognize there's some lawns that don't even have a single leaf on the entire landscape. Like the temple I went to, the Kansas City temple. If you look at the grass, there's literally not a single leaf on the lawn, on all four corners. It was beautiful. And it's that type of level of meticulousness and attention to detail that reveals how much or how people treat things that they label as sacred. If this place is the most sacred place for the LDS faith or the believers, what does it look like? What do people behave like? How is it taken care of and maintained? I wanted to perceive that. And so when I went there, it was beautiful. So not only am I having like a spiritual experience, I'm having a physical experience where I'm just perceiving all this vibrant, like literal vibrancy. I wish I couldn't, my photos don't do it justice, and I don't want to alter my photos, but they don't do it justice about how vibrantly green everything was. And it was as if like you dropped a seed on the ground and it's going to guarantee to grow. And I saw evidence of that actually when I stayed with Hillary's family, because their yard, their husband practices like a type of agriculture where he sows seeds in a different, everything's like a garden. Basically, wherever you walk in their yard is something edible. And it was so cool. I'm front and back. And so that type of mentality is what is carried over and evident within when I'm walking around Adam, because the soil is so rich. You can look at the quality of the dirt and you can just see how rich it is. And it honestly reminds me of the Fertile Crescent and my time in Turkey, because you literally take like any type of seed, no matter what it is, and you squish it into the ground, it's gonna grow because the soil was just so fertile and the conditions were just that. The environment was perfect for produce, mass producing agriculture. And that is exactly how it felt and was perceived being in Adam. With the cornfields and the soybean, like everything was just growing so vibrantly and abundantly green and very lush. And I love, though, even though it was like this rural landscape with cornfields and stuff, it was manicured. It was a hybrid between going to a golf course and experiencing nature. Like, if anyone's aware about how crops usually work, they don't care about, like, they don't necessarily groom and manicure and make sure there's like flower beds that are maintained and green grass maintained around their fields. It was like that. Everything was just very beautifully manicured and well maintained. Even the pond there, you had like the well maintained grass, and you had a little area to like an erosion prevention area. So when like if it rains and stuff, then the tall natural grasses that grow for the pond, and then the pond there. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. I was curious if there was bass in there, but I did see signs saying no fishing, so it's okay. I didn't bring a fishing pole anyways, but that'd be a fun, I feel like that'd be a fun event that I feel like some of the wards should be able to do, just like host like a fishing or like day out there, because it's just really cool. Anyways, I'm sure they have that. But walking around, I parked and went to the overlook, and it was very beautiful, looking over the fields and seeing that. And it reminded me so much of just rural Jerusalem, how it used to be, or how it experienced like back in the day before the walls, like before it is what it is today. Like, I don't think people are aware that Jerusalem was kind of a relatively small city, and on the outskirts was like rural. It turned rural very quickly. Like the Garden of Gethsemane, if you go to Israel to the modern era, it's all like very close together. But back then it wasn't. It was far. It was like a far distance. Like modern era makes it so convenient to see this like place look smaller than it actually felt before, when it was more rural and like the agriculture and the stuff was still there. But that's what being in Adam like felt like, and it was so wonderful. And looking at even the flower beds, all the flowers that were present, it was just exactly what you would imagine Adam and Eve experienced in a place that was labeled the Garden of Eden. You had like these beetles that were reproducing there. You had bees coming in and landing on the mystic spires. There was dahlias, oh man, zinnias. There was just a plethora of every color imaginable that the human eye can perceive. It was present there in those flower beds. And again, they were just very well meticulously maintained, just like the temples that I saw in Salt Lake City, just like the temple I saw in Kansas City just now. Doesn't look like the San Antonio temple, y'all. I don't know what you guys are doing, but no offense, but that temple needs some work. Landscaping wise, I found trash there before, and I was just like, I text my friend being like, hey, I just didn't anticipate I'd be seeing this much trash there. You know when you replant in the summer or spring or whatnot, they left all the little tags. They're just everywhere. No one cared to clean those up. And it just really perturbed me, because I was like, this is supposed to be how you treat your sacred space, and you guys are just littering on it. That doesn't show a very high level of care. On the other hand, at Adam, there was no trash anywhere. It was pristinely clean. The bathrooms were well maintained. All the signs had beautiful words and descriptions on them. It wasn't too much. It was just enough information to allow that awe and wonder to naturally emerge, to allow that curiosity to unfold as you experience the place and relate it to different experiences of your life or locations. And it reminded me most certainly of Jerusalem, and especially going down to Preacher's Rock, which going down to the trails, I want to talk about the trails real quick, because they're all gravel trails. They're very nicely maintained. They show the distance. They make people aware of like the gradient, the difficulty of it. And even gravel, I don't think people notice this, but gravel requires upkeep. Grass grows into it. You have weeds that'll spring up. And the only reason I'm familiar with this is because I xeriscaped and landscaped my front yard, and I have to constantly pick the crabgrass and the other types of weeds that are able to break through the weed barrier. And xeriscaping requires some serious effort and upkeep, and so does gravel. And even if it's a gravel road, people just automatically assume like nothing's going to grow through that. Nature's relentless. That place is fertile. And so everything grows very rapidly, so a lot of maintenance needs to be done. And the gravel roads were very well maintained. You didn't see the overgrowth. You saw very clean borders of where the stewardship started. And it was everywhere. It was very evident everywhere. And stewardship represents how meaningful does this place, like, what does this mean to people? And it's so clear that it's just something very significant for a lot of people because of how well it's maintained. And so I just want to give a shout out to those gravel roads, like the gravel trails being, like, the gravel was evenly placed. There was no places of washout necessarily. And even I went down further. It was like some of the maintenance trails for the people that work there and maintain the land. And the farmers, I think they lease out the land too. The trails, if it rains or there's floods or anything like that, or branches, nature happens, right? There's branches that end up on the trail. Someone had gone down through the fields, because around the border of the fields, you have to drive those fields and stuff, and there's roads leading down to them. Someone had collected the sticks and placed them to the side to keep the road path clear for the maintenance and the farmers and the access of the fields and whatnot. And that, again, is a level of meticulous care that often I feel like goes unnoticed. People just notice like a well-groomed area or like a pretty field, but they don't notice the pile of sticks that was maintaining that trail, the overgrowth being hedged back, the grass being freshly cut, erosion prevention. All sorts of things were evident there, and that stewardship, again, increases the depth of meaning because it literally symbolizes in a tangible way where you can experience something that is classified as holy and sacred ground. And the only real place like that I've experienced something like that, or just I have such fond memories of it. And I was commenting back to some woman that was commenting on one of my posts, and I was like bawling. And so that's what made me pause to watch this, to make this video, because that place reminded me of Jerusalem. And I have like some of my most fond memories of like my entire existence are from Israel and like Jerusalem. And I say that like even if like in the future, if we're able to travel to other planets, perhaps, you know, Jerusalem will still be my favorite place out of all the cosmos, just because of the significance that it plays not only for humanity, but for the memories and the things that I experienced there that made me who I am today. And you can't replace that. And then also for humanity, Jerusalem for countless of centuries, like literally since the beginning of like the concept of time, Jerusalem has been the pivotal geographic location. Israel has been the pivotal geographic location where empires, civilizations, trade, migrations, like movement of humanity and civilization crossed through that. It was utilized as the one connection to the entire globe. It's how ideas spread through. That place was a significant, such a pivotal trade route that it was always destined to be an area of conflict, and just only the most like resilient people would ever be able to sustain keeping that land as something meaningful for centuries. And like the Jews have done that. And I don't think people recognize how like hard that is. Anyways, it's a very significant place for human history. Period. And it's like a place like the birth of monotheism came out of there, and that still continues to shape billions of lives. And it's just so beautiful to see how just one single ripple, one single just concept can completely change the trajectory of a species and the development of an entire planet. Anywho, I got sidetracked. What was I saying? Oh yeah, but anyways, I also, oops, my sound thing came out, and we should put that in there. I don't know how that, hopefully my sound's still on. Sorry, this technology thing. Okay, here we go. But as I was, I went down to Preacher Rock, and I also walked through the cornfields. Because I just find I love corn. Corn's very significant, again, for human species, too. Like the Native Americans, the indigenous tribes, utilize corn in every way, shape, and form. Anywho, I explored that place to like a kid in a candy store, man. I was just so in awe and wonder and thrilled with just the stewardship, the memories it invoked. But Preacher's Rock. So I loved Preacher's Rock too because it makes like a natural amphitheater. And there even was a grove of trees at the bottom that was just very beautiful. The landscape was all green. All the grass was very green, like freshly cut. Not freshly cut, recently cut. And again, like it was a little bit damp because of the rain and a little bit of like mist in the air. And I had that all to myself. All of this was just alone by myself because no one was there. I have no idea where the woman that was singing in the bathroom went, but I never saw her again. But I just loved it. It was just so surreal to be there. And as I was walking up, right, I took some pictures by myself because no one was there. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll leave. And so I was going back up. And then in the park also, there's different places where it shows suggestions of where to go. Because again, I arrived here and I had no plan. The only place I knew I was going to start was Adam. So I went to Adam, and then coincidentally, also, I forgot when I arrived, coincidentally, my gas tank was like 333. So I thought that was fun, right? To tie into the beautiful symbolism and awe of the moment. Not that it means anything beyond a coincidence, but statistically speaking, it's a rare coincidence, so that's why it catches your awareness and attention. So it's a fun whimsy to add on to the trip, right? Anywho, I didn't know what I was going to do next, so I looked at one of the signs in the park, and I said, oh, okay, the Pioneer, there's different things on the sign, like Liberty Jail, and I was already aware I was going to do that later. But I saw the Pioneer Cemetery, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll go there next. So I put into my GPS, and I was like, is there anything else I want to see, do here? And I was just like, no, I think I saw it all. And so I get in my car, and I'm driving down, and as I'm driving towards the entrance, because I was at Preacher's Rock. There's two different places, the Overlook and Preacher's Rock. I had driven around to Preacher's Rock, because you can go either right or left. I went left and explored, and then I went right. And that's where I was ending, and I was done there, and as I was leaving, these two like mega tour buses pull up or like pull in and go past me, and I'm just like, those were those are huge tour buses. I feel like they're full of people because there's no other reason to be coming out here. I'm curious about how I want to observe their experience. I want to go see them interact with this place too. And so I did like a U-ey. I was like, skirt on the dirt road, and I turned back around, and hopefully, I don't know if anyone on the bus saw me because like they literally passed and I literally came back, and I pulled in, and I was eating peanuts, and I was cracking the shells, and I was originally throwing them on the ground, and then when the tour buses come up, I was like, well, that was bad. I like littered, even though it's biodegradable, I kind of littered on like their holy ground. Let me like clean up my peanuts because I was like still eating peanuts because I had peanuts in my pocket. So I was, walking around, like picking up my peanut shells and going over to the garbage can, waiting for them to get off the bus because it was taking a while. And I didn't want to just like sit in my car, so I was kind of like loitering. Thankfully, I had my peanut shells to pick up and just sat there by, eating the rest of my peanuts, kind of walking. And this woman walks out with an umbrella, and she just goes over to like the Overlook area, and at the top of Preacher's Rock, and she takes a photo. They called it like Stone Hill or something like that. Takes a photo and then walks back to the bus. And I was like, are people getting off? Like, it was very kind of slow to get off the bus, so I didn't know what was happening. I was like, are they like actually people here or whatever? But eventually they all started coming out of the bus, and the lady that came out originally, started coming back over again towards my direction to look over the Overlook. And I was like, I'm just going to go talk to her because I don't want to just like walk into their group, but I want to, I want to talk to them. I want to see what they're doing. And so I go up to her, and her name's Jill. I think she's from like Orem or Odom, Utah. she is been a volunteer on this tour group. And I was like, hey, what are you guys doing? And she's volunteers like, oh, we're on this is the final like day of our trip. We started in upstate New York, and we're going through all like the sacred sites, or the sites that are pivotal to the LDS faith, basically. And I was thrilled by that. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool that you guys are doing that. And she was like, yeah. And then the tour guide, the one's leading this tour, is Al Carricker or something like that. And she's like, do you know who that is? And I was like, no, I have no idea who that is. It's like, oh, the tattooed Mormon. And I was like, cool, I guess that's her nickname. I still had no idea who that was. But talking with Jill, she said that she's been volunteering with that, like the company, for the last 4 years. Her and her husband volunteer and organize these trips and have people do them. They do like, I think a couple a year or whatever, but they volunteer their time, and they're like 10 to 12 day trips. They're riding buses going from upstate New York all through Illinois, going down here and ending in Kansas City. And this was one of their stops. This was like one of their final stops before they go to like Liberty Jail and things like that. But she said, oh, we're going down to Preacher's Rock, and if you want to come see, because it's a natural amphitheater. And I was aware about the natural amphitheater thing, but hearing her talk about it, it just reminded me of the landscape of Jerusalem again, or not Jerusalem, of just Israel, like on the hills, like overlooking like seas and the groves of olive trees and stuff like that. Very, very beautiful, reminiscent with the natural amphitheater it makes. And so Jill said that she was gonna let us, or the speaker, Al was going to, speak on the rocks, and you can go down the trees and hear it. And I was like, well, I want to go experience it, see her do it. And so I went down into the valley with everyone, and I went kind of far back into the grove of trees. And there was like all the people, the masses, the little gathering from the bus were there. I took a picture. I don't know. There was a decent amount. I don't know, like maybe 100. I'm not really good at guesstimating numbers, but no, there's gonna be less than 100. There's 2 busfuls of people there, all gathered down in the trees, like just a little crowd, right? And then she starts speaking. She's like, spin if you can hear my voice. And you can't really locate where her voice is coming from if you weren't aware of where the rock was positioned. But you could hear it very clearly down into the trees and at the bottom of the hill in the far corners. And so that was beautiful. And so like I spun around, and other people spun around. You look around, the kids running around, everyone starts spinning, and it's beautiful, like how clear it was. And she wasn't talking very loud, and she did other things that say, like, if you can hear my voice, blah, 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 raise your hand. And then she quoted about the significance of the site, about what's supposed to occur there, or when it's supposed to, the symbolism behind it. And she asked, does anyone want to come up here and talk and try it? And I was like, yeah, I do. But I was like in the way back. So I just started walking my way towards there, because she kept talking about other things. And as I was walking back up the hill, because Jill and her husband, and there's a little bit of people gathered up around Preacher's Rock as well. And so I went up to the hill, and I just started talking to Jill, being like, is this how loud she was talking? Because I wanted to see how loud she was talking from the top too. And she was like, oh yeah, this is how loud she's been doing it. And I was like, wow, it's very clear down there. And then she said a couple more words about like the keys and the priesthood and something like that. And then she says, does anyone want to try? And I was like, I do. And so I got up there, and I said, it was so cool, y'all. There was just like a group of people. Imagine just like this random stranger, like you're on a tour, and this random person gets up on a rock, and the first thing I say was like, hi everyone, like, I'm not actually a part of your tour. I was actually leaving, and I saw you guys pulling in, so I did a U-E because I wanted to go see I was curious about what you guys were going to go see. And I basically just talked about how significant it was. And I said, this place is a sacred place because of the meaning people like you guys bring to it. The visitors and people having these experiences here, on the effort it takes. Like Jill, like, thank you, Jill, for, even inviting me to join your group. and having that invitation, but the symbolism and meaning and the effort behind why this place is sacred and reverent, you guys being here demonstrate that. So like, thank you for being here and, you know, making this a meaningful visit for me. And just like the whole concept behind the trip in itself. And it was just so awesome to just be able to, you know, experience that by coincidence. Like, it was just a great opportunity to just be able to like thank people and just make them aware about how meaningful their own actions are for being there. Like, to any other person, right, it could just be like a rock, it could just be some land and some fields, but for the LDS faith and for like millions of people, that place holds significance. It's changed people's lives when they've gone there. I've read through comments on different videos that people like talk about how meaningful experiences they have there, and that's what creates that level of reverence, that level and depth of meaning that enables that legacy, that awareness to continue to ripple out. And it was so great to just be able to have the opportunity to be a part of that moment that they were creating, and just it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. Just leave it there. Anyways, after I got off, I talked to Al, because I recognized she's obviously the one that Jill was talking about. So I was like, oh, hey, Al, like, nice to meet you. And Jill was just, I wanted to highlight Jill. So hopefully, I don't know exactly what ward Jill was from, but I know it was Southern Utah, and started with O. Her and her husband. And she just Jill kept highlighting Al and everyone else. Like, no part of her ever took credit for all the work it took to volunteer and do these trips. And all in my head I could think was like, Jill, no one would be here if it wasn't for you organizing and putting this together and volunteering for it. Like, these people wouldn't be here unless someone designed and created the experience for them to have. And you are the part behind the scenes that did that. Like, and I told her, I said something along those lines to her, but I phrased it in LDS, like, terminology, like testimony and things like that. Because she deserved acknowledgement for what she is helping create. And talking with Al too, and I don't think people recognize, so I'm aware now that she's called the Tattooed Mormon, and she's pretty popular in LDS culture. But I don't think people actually realize how significant of a jump it was for her, and like how catastrophic of an experience it was to go from like cradle Catholic to LDS. And the reason for that, because when we were talking, she was telling me like her grandmother was a Carmelite nun. And first off, the Carmelites are my favorite pen pals because they write me back. So if you ever want a nice conversation with some Carmelite nuns, there's plenty of places that you can write a letter to, and they'll personally write you a handwritten letter back. They make great pen pals. Anyways, they definitely do better than Opus Dei. We'll get into that. But her grandmother was a Carmelite nun. And then she said like her parents, her mother and grandmother were the kind where they memorized the prayers in Latin. And I just wanted to be like, Pater Noster, quies in celis, like, you know. Oh, it's so like she comes from a family so ingrained. Imagine the legacy of people that are in the LDS faith. You guys tie it back, the entire lineage of that start, the origin of LDS. There are some families, and like Al, I would argue, one of her families was just as equivalently as embedded and tied to the Catholic faith, the genealogy, the lineage, that devotion for a very, very significantly long period of time. And so for her to leave that environment and switch to a different faith, in Catholicism, I don't think people recognize that, like, people don't take people leaving Catholicism well, especially if you're from like generations of like cradle Catholics. Like, I'm pretty sure if you like cut them, you would start hearing like Ave Maria start playing, because there's just so much Catholicism within their DNA. Okay, it is a whole culture identity. It's the same as someone crossing the border between like Judaism and Palestine, right? Or Gentile and Jew. It's a huge cleavage. It's a cataclysm, right? That could be argued as one of the cataclysms of the Catholic Church, is her breaking from that that environment. Not that it's bad at all, but I just want people to recognize how much courage that takes, because I'm pretty sure she said like her family just stopped talking to her, like disowned her for a period of time. And I don't, and as a young person, and this all occurred when she was younger, but that is a significant, a trial of fire for anyone to go through. Like, you completely basically lose your identity and jump into this unknown simply because you have a feeling, basically, right? Or you have to pursue this for yourself type thing, but recognizing it's going to cost you like all of that lineage and that the shock and disbelief your family's going to feel. That takes an extreme level of courage and bravery and resilience that people don't recognize. And you wonder, when people make these leaps, why they turn out to be so successful, why they turn out to have great skills of talking about their story, of having people resonate with them, of being able to articulate their experiences. It's because they literally did one of the most bravest and courageous things you can do. And that what the part that's missing, though, is that oftentimes they don't realize that those skills were cultivated and built within Catholicism. Al, I believe she grew up Catholic. Her origin story in her journey will forever have a Catholic component to it, because that's what built her skills to create the courage, tenacity, the resilience, the self-agency, the discernment to become the person she is today and become a spokesperson for the Latter-day Saints in that capacity that she's doing. And with that, though, she's also bringing a huge breadth of knowledge and awareness from a Catholic perspective. And she can she basically becomes a symbolic Israel, because she's able to cross both worlds and understand and step into both and understand both, but not necessarily cause conflict. Because, again, like, she acts as a connector, a connecting bridge, a communicating bridge between cross faiths, across different aspects of humanity that allow for unity and understanding, a greater depth of understanding to emerge all together. And so that's beautiful. So I absolutely loved hearing her story and just getting to meet her coincidentally there. I took pictures with both her and Jill, even though, okay, I tried to edit my picture to like decrease the weird look on the picture between, it looks like it's like photoshopped. I'll put a picture of it up. Between me and Al, it looks like Photoshop. It looks like I was like, and I sent it to my girlfriend too. And my girlfriend said, "You literally look like you Photoshopped yourself into this picture." And I was like, I told her, I don't know what happened. That's just what whoever took the picture, that's what it came out with. But me and Jill's photo came out normal. So, anyways, I'm gonna shower. But that was my experience with Adam-ondi-Ahman. Adam-ondi-Ahman. Okay, anyways, I'm getting confused. I gotta finish mowing my lawn, but that is gonna be my first day in Missouri. And I did other things throughout the afternoon, but they aren't necessarily correlated to the LDS perspective. So I can just cut it there. It involves, though, yeah, I'll just cut it there. Box will be cool.